Hi guys.
Hello,
Once again, it is Alex.
and Ryan.
We're here talking about Survivor, Winners at War. I'm so terrible at knowing the episode numbers just because I can never remember how many people are left.
Eight,
Eight.
episode eight.
We will go with eight because I could not tell you to save my life. I'm a fan enough to watch the show, but with people leaving the game two at a time sometimes and people coming back into the game, I can't just go off the number it doesn't matter. Anyway, we had episode 8, which was not only the merge episode, it was also the Edge of Extinction back into the main game challenge. So we got a lot to talk about. Ryan, what did you think?
Um, Overall, probably I like this for me was like the most woo episode. I started kind of high and then really low and then stayed low and then high again, and I think I ended about mid-range. So it was just a big roller coaster episode for me.
I would agree wholeheartedly.
So I guess let's just get right into it. We start off at the edge of extinction. Wendell has arrived. Natalie and Rob both immediately kind of start off with buying hidden immunity idols. Um, were you surprised? Because I kind of thought the smart thing to do here is just buy 3 advantages and then worry about idols when you're actually in the game.
So here's the thing about that. Since we're all still so new to the fire token currency thing, I just figured you could buy one. Because I don't ever remember there being a challenge where there were 2 advantages within the same challenge. So my brain immediately went to there's one challenge for or there's one advantage for the challenge. It's like, well, if you have 3, you may as well use them if you get back into the game. I didn't realize they could have been like, oh, this challenge means you get to skip the first net obstacle. This challenge means you get half your pole's already made. This challenge means you have a shorter beam to shimmy the ball up. I had no idea. So when people were like, they shouldn't have done that, I was like, well, what else would they have done? So I was surprised by that even being allowable. But yeah, once that came to be a reality where they could have bought multiple advantages, I was kind of shocked that neither Rob nor Natalie thought, like, let me just advantage my way through this challenge. I want to get back in.
Right. I mean, when you think about it, everybody except for Amber, Parvati, and Yule had a challenge advantage. So ultimately, it was even less about having an advantage, and it was more so about having a disadvantage in not having a fire token to play that advantage. So, I mean, hindsight is 2020, but ultimately, we do see that throughout this challenge, it really doesn't pan out. But there are a couple other things that are happening before this. Of course, we have the merge, and there's the merge feast.
Yeah.
Um, we have Denise kind of bragging a little bit about. Oh, actually, you know what? I am a little bit backwards. That didn't happen first. It was the challenge before the merge feast.
Yeah,
Um,
you can rejoin the tribes.
I read my note about merge, and then I'm looking down here, and I'm way ahead because Jeff announced it at the challenge that they were merged. My
Exactly.
fault.
It's all good. Yeah,
Um,
basically, it's like, hey, the 12 of you are or the 11 of you are merged. Let's bring back all the eliminated players challenge.
right.
Returnee joins the merged tribe feast.
Right. Sorry, I got way ahead on my notes.
Okay.
Tyson has this really emotional conversation about his family back at home and how it's almost like, is the money worth leaving your family behind? And it gets really emotional. And I actually have a few did you miss it moments, but my very first one from this episode was when Tyson is talking about how he misses his family is at home and he's not sure if $2 million is worth being away from them. Natalie side-eyed Jeff like, fuck that. She was like,
I'm going back.
I don't give a fuck about my family. I am winning $2 million.
I mean, my did you notice thing was immediately like it was in the same time frame, and mine was nowhere near as good as yours. Mine was 120%. Oh, Boston Rob gets his little emotional. Oh, it's terrible on edge of extinction. It's so miserable being there with my wife, and then or not because of his wife, but it's like we're out there and it sucks and things like that. Tyson gets a big emotional thing, and who were the top two place or finishers in the comeback challenge? Surprise.
Right.
Okay, editing, sure.
It was a little like weird to me. Just I felt like some of the moments in the challenge were like I can't specifically say if this is correct, and I'm not trying to ride the conspiracy theory wave more than I already have this season. But like I feel like there were moments on Edge of Extinction, like this, or sorry, Island of the Idols, where Rob was like coaching people in the game and was like either like helping people craft stuff, like make fire and stuff like that. There's probably like, remember how there's a couple things we didn't see of him coaching people? One was probably like knot tying and stuff. So this is very much like a Rob Mariano challenge. But anyway, what did you feel about the challenge? I felt like it was a decent obstacle course kind of thing, but I was a little bummed because it was very much not in Natalie's wheelhouse.
I'm obviously devastated. Spoiler, Natalie does not come back into the game, much to my chagrin. I desperately wanted her to come back. If not her, then Yule, and then if not the two of them, then Parvati. But the challenge I felt was a pretty fair balance. I think that there were aspects of the challenge where I really expected it would be like, it's going to be something that a male would potentially do better at than maybe the girls. Um, it's unfortunate because I wasn't crazy about the turnout. Even though I'm not the world's biggest Boston Rob fan, I would have much rather preferred him coming back into the game than who actually did.
Really?
Oh God, yeah. Oh, Tyson, Boston Rob, I think would go in and kind of like blow things up, whether immediately and just immediately like be voted out like right from the get go. Spoiler alert, Tyson gets back into the game. I kind of felt like Tyson, he's not one of my favorite winners. He's not a winner whose gameplay I think is going to be so drastically different from what he was doing before. If anything, he might just lay low. And I just think like if someone were going to come back into the game, I want them to get in there and start wrecking things. And even to a level where it's like, yes, they're a threat, but still there are other threats. We obviously know we can get this person out. We can get them out again. I don't know. I wasn't particularly thrilled.
Well, I was definitely devastated that it was Tyson and not some other people. I really wanted Natalie. I really wanted Yule, Ethan, Parvati. I would have even been happy with Danny. Like, there was a longer list of who I wanted than who I did not want.
So between Tyson and Boston Rob, if you could have handpicked who went back into the game, who would you have gone with?
Between who?
Between Tyson and Boston Rob.
Oh, Tyson, absolutely. Because
Wow.
I
Okay.
enjoy watching Tyson more. And I think Tyson had a better. I feel like if Rob went back in the game, he just goes right back out. I don't see anything else happening.
I think that's fair. I just
I
think
mean, he had an idol, so apparently not. But
yeah, exactly. I think Rob going back into the game would have been, there would have been some level of, I don't know, you don't know what he's going to do. You don't know, like, knowing had he's already been back out and then back into the game, I think like his deviousness would have been amped to a 200. His ability to his desire to throw people under the bus would have been amplified. He probably still would have gone out in the same episode, if not directly afterwards, soon enough. I still think it would have been more interesting than the episode we got.
well, the thing that I like about it being Tyson, because I feel like Tyson returning is a very different scenario than Rob. Tyson is, to me, I think he can be very fun to watch on the show. He is funny and smarmy and sarcastic, and that makes for decent television. And the difference between Tyson and Rob is if Rob comes back, I think people don't really give him a shot. With Tyson coming back, because like the thing is, one, either they don't give him a shot because they're like, no, he's going to do too much damage in the game, like we can't keep him around. Even if he gets to the end, he won't win, but he's still going to murder us along the way. Or two, they drag Rob to the end and they go, oh no, he got voted out, so you can't vote for him to win, obviously. And then I have to put up with like 8 more episodes of Rob, which I don't really want to do. And so for me, if I have to put up with 8 more episodes of one of the two, I would rather watch Tyson because he's been on less seasons.
Yeah, I guess the main difference, I totally hear that and I get that. I just think as much as I'm not a Boston Rob like fangirl by any stretch of the imagination. I think for me the only difference is Tyson to me, I feel like in 3 games that he played, he was kind of like the smarmy, kind of like throw some jokes in there and things like that. And I think I don't necessarily mind Rob in a season where it seems like everyone is up on his BS. Because Redemption Island, everyone was eating it with a spoon, which was really annoying to watch. And then in All Stars, everyone was also eating it up because it was very much him, like just capitalizing on the friendships he had made outside of the show. Whereas
Yeah.
in this season, it's like, no, he is actually in there and he's actually needing to play. And we haven't really seen much of that in a long time from him. So I kind of feel like with Tyson, it's a little bit of the same that we've always seen from him, which is why I'm kind of like, I would have granted, there still would have been 4 people I would have liked to see back in the game before either of them, but I still would have put probably Rob at 5th and then Tyson at 6th.
That's fair enough. So getting back to where I jumped ahead to from before, Tyson does return to the game.
Sure
Um,
does.
he has a big victory moment, screaming at the challenge, and
I mean,
it
I would
was
have.
kind of interesting because his answer before the challenge kind of made it seem like, oh, maybe I'd rather just go home, and then he wins. But I mean, whatever.
I would have loved to have seen like if they had maybe like a micro answer from all of them. When they spent that much time on Tyson and then he gets back into the game, I'm like, okay, edit.
Right.
I just can't.
Um, we go to the merge feast, and right away we get Denise. She is asked what happened with Sandra, and she's kind of like exposing her resume, as Sophie points out, like, oh well, Denise is letting everybody know she's got a resume, which we know at this point in the game is super dangerous. Like, the point where the resumes matter the most is right at the merge and right at the end of the merge. So Denise exposing this really early is scary for me as a huge Denise fan.
Agreed.
um, I feel like there were ways where Denise could have talked about what happened with Sandra without making herself seem like such a strategic threat this early on, and that might have helped her. If she had maybe been like, well, Sandra was being really rude to me, honestly. She was like calling me out and saying I was going home all day. And then 10 minutes before travel, she's like, here, take this idol. And she's like, and she was just like, I had an idol I was going to use on myself anyway, and I was already going to vote for Sandra. And then she gave me her idol too. So I just played it for Jeremy to be safe.
Yeah.
That would have been like, oh, well, it wasn't that big of a move. And then you get to final tribal and you're like, no, that move was huge. That didn't happen 10 minutes before tribal. I had all day. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I was a little confused at her showing her hand that way.
It was interesting because a lot of people, at least online that I was reading, a lot of people said that she was bragging was a word. I think when you first started talking about it, you might have used the word brag as well. And for me, I'm almost just like, I wholeheartedly agree with you 120%. There's a way to phrase that makes you seem less intimidating and less of a like Queen Slayer, as she was effectively dubbed, which I love the term. I'm like, even if she doesn't win, Queen Slayer for life. I think that's the best thing we've heard nickname-wise in forever. Hi, Coach. But for me, I'm definitely the person who's like, I think she was asked a question, she was answering the question, and more importantly, I would rather Denise be able to get in there and give her take and her spin on things. Because I feel like even if she had downplayed it, she easily could have been like off by herself. And whether it's Sophie, Sarah, Jeremy, or Tony, wait, wrong tribe. Tony, Jeremy, who else was, oh, Kim. If any of them just wanted to like wreck her game, be like, this is what Denise told all of you. This is what actually happened. So
Right.
like, I think Denise was damned if she did, damned if she didn't. I think, and you know, to her testament, when you make a move that influential in the game, she would have had to have really downplayed everything she did to the original tribe anyway. And maybe that's a lesson for her to learn if she ever comes back for round 3. But it's almost just like, I might as well tell the story the way that I want to tell it, in a way that is me telling the story, because even her telling the truth, there's a chance that people might spin what she did and make her target. But to your point, wholeheartedly agree. Sophie immediately caught up on that. We got to talk about Sophie this episode.
I have a lot to say about Sophie, maybe a little bit farther along, but
That's fair.
I feel like Sophie just keeps giving me everything I want from an All Returnees season. I'm like, really, I don't want to jinx it because I jinxed it with Yule, so I'm not going to say anything about my hopes for her. I'm just very impressed, and I have been that way from the start of the season, from before the season. I'm glad that she, at least for me, she's delivering. Um, I I want to talk about Jeremy immediately opening up the merge target base by targeting Nick because he is Wendell's number one and he wants to get close with Wendell. Oh, this doesn't surprise me at all because Jeremy and Michelle were close over on Old Cele. Wendell and Michelle obviously are working together from New Cele. And so Jeremy, who I'm assuming his number one is really Michelle in the game, would obviously go, hey, I want to work with Michelle and I obviously need to get close to Wendell, but if Wendell's close to Nick, that's a Final Four situation where I'm probably number four because these three people just came from the same tribe. So targeting Nick is a smart move, I think. And the way that he goes about it is by trying to establish this like big targets alliance. And I want to talk about that for a little bit because I like it, weirdly enough.
Yeah, I love the idea. I almost want it to work. That's why I'm so annoyed at who went home this week.
Well, like I'm just a little surprised because like it's like the big targets alliance and like big players, but and no offense to Ben if he ever hears about this, but Ben being in the big players list and people like Kim not being in the big players list is very surprising to me. I feel like who coined you as a big player, because I've never heard somebody say that Ben Driebergen is one of the biggest players of Survivor, perhaps one of the biggest idol finders of Survivor.
Correct.
So that was weird. How did you feel about the big targets alliance?
I think a big targets alliance makes sense. I think even though I think of everyone in the big target alliance, the only person in there that I'm remotely like that is growing on me as the season progresses is Tony. He's really the only one because that's what he's been trying to do from the jump. Because Tony knows the split second he looks or people start looking around, they're like, we've got Tony, we've got X other big name target. He doesn't want to get the Boston Rob treatment. And to me, that's really smart of him to try and do. Also, targeting the smaller targets to me makes all the sense in the world. Because if I have to look at Ben win a second time, I want to know that he played a big game and that he was a threat and he was perceived as a threat and he still made it to the end. I don't want to look at Nick go to the end for a second time when the first time he went there, I'm like, how did he get here? Oh yeah, he surrounded himself with bigger targets and those targets went home and they didn't want to vote for Angelia. What? No, I'm out. Same thing with Adam, same thing with Adam, and same thing with Michelle. I would much rather a big target who was established as a big target, who made an alliance with other big targets, make it to the end even if I'm not a big fan of them and win, than people who are just like, well, they're here.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting to me the way that you feel about Tony. See, Tony has grown on me on a personality level. I still haven't seen anything game-wise from him other than this whole, oh, I need to keep the big targets in. And we're like 8 episodes in, so like for this to be the first showing of some kind of strategy, I'm still not totally sold on him yet. Actually, I feel like the way that you feel about Tony, I'm kind of feeling about Ben. I'm not a fan of his at all, but I have seen some moments from him as the season has gone on where I'm like, I think strategically you're making the right moves here, and that's at least a little impressive to me. So,
and I think for both of them, a lot of it has to do with the edit.
Yeah.
Because I think we went episodes at a time where we didn't really see or hear much from Ben unless he was complaining about Adam. And then we didn't really see anything about Tony other than, hey, you're a big threat, I'm a big threat. Why don't we work together? And for the most part, even though he hasn't been the most successful, I feel like Tony at least is throwing it out there. He's throwing it out there and he's also not getting eliminated. When Tyson threw it out there, Tyson got voted out. When Boston Rob threw it out there, Boston Rob got voted out. Tony, for whatever reason under the sun, he keeps dangling the bait out there. And even if it doesn't go the way that he's intending it to go, he still stays in. So I think there's something there to at least admire, especially when you consider later in the episode we get things like Adam, but we'll get to that.
So Nick is the initial big target due to Jeremy wanting Wendell's number one ally out. But then we also see
there's something homoerotic about that I probably should not feel, but I'm feeling it.
Listen, I will always appreciate a minority of any kind in the game wanting to work with other minority players, because I feel like Survivor does such a bad job of casting minorities in general that
I won't get on that soapbox, but please, I agree.
it's nice when like two people who are gay work together or two people who are Asian work together or something like that, because we're just not used to seeing that. And then half the time when Survivor does cast them, it's like they target each other, and I don't know if that's production input or what, but it gets very annoying. So and Wendell and Jeremy are both people who on a personal level I enjoy them as people, so I like the prospect of them working together. Yeah,
Same.
sorry, go ahead.
I just said same. That's it.
The other big target that starts out in this episode is Denise. A lot of people are throwing out Denise's name like hardcore.
Oh,
I'm already bummed about it, and I'm just going into this episode all over my notes. Denise, you better win this immunity challenge because it is not looking good.
no.
Um, so get to the challenge, and I want to throw this out there. I'm mad at myself because I think we had a moment in a past episode we were talking about like the challenges that we usually see at the merge, and I almost said that one that I was really hoping to see was going to be this challenge from Micronesia, that Parvati won. I'm pretty sure Parvati won, where they have to sit on the pole for however long.
I
Um,
think so. Well, I think Parvati won the one where it was like, hey, make some friends, get some cake, or something like that.
Oh, I don't know. I just remember Parvati sitting on the pole for a long, long time, like being Parvati.
You're probably right.
It might have been Parvati, it might have been Natalie. I can't remember who it was, but regardless, it's a fun challenge, and I like it because we don't really see that many of these like you've been doing like that specific one. I guess is what I'm trying to say. We see other like stand here for forever ones, but we haven't seen that one in forever. Um, and I'm also excited because this seems to be a challenge that usually lends itself towards smaller people doing well. So this gives Denise an option.
I'm 6'3". I would have lasted probably 14 seconds in that challenge.
And I weigh 190 pounds, so my ass was not going to stay up
So
on
that'd be that challenge. You're like, thank God, because I'm about to show I am not an immunity threat. Thank you.
that.
Thank you.
So we find out that one woman and one man are going to win immunity. Who are you cheering for to win immunity going into this challenge?
Obviously, I'm cheering for Denise because I think I want Denise to win the season. From the edit that she's getting, I don't think it happens, but I'd be so thrilled if it did. So I'm obviously rooting for Denise, one, because I want her to win, but two, because everyone's talking about the threat that she is. And I'm like, no, stop it, shut up. And then of the men, I'm trying to think of who of the men that are left that I'm actually rooting for. And the answer is, so I wasn't mad at who actually won it of the men because he's right in there. I think also I wasn't necessarily worried for any of the men. I think in this episode, I hate to say it, but I think any of the men could have gone, and I was just like, no, or I would have been like, oh, okay, whatever. But if Kim, Sophie, or Denise were to leave in this episode, I would have been devastated. So
I was cheering for Denise and Tyson, surprisingly, just because would have been really bitter if Tyson got the spot back into the game and went right back out. So I didn't want it to be an easy like, oh well, he just came back, let's just vote him out and then play the game in the next round. Like let's not even play this round, let's just vote him out. So
I wouldn't be shocked. What do you think about strategically? Because obviously we didn't see it in Edge of Extinction. Yeah, that was the one. When Rick Devens came back into the game, it didn't seem like until about 3 episodes in that people were like, let's get rid of Devens after he had gotten back into the game. So do you think when you come back from Edge of Extinction, is it possible that people who might have voted you out, but since then have been in really horrible number scenarios or like had to overcome or like looking for numbers, do you think it's almost more likely with an Edge of Extinction situation that people are just like, oh my God, a number, thank you, Jesus, please vote with me. I'm sorry I voted you out before.
here's my brain going logically about this situation is that at the merge with first off, you have to think before the season. You have relationships with these other winners. You have not all of them, but some of them.
Yeah.
Then in the season, you're split into two tribes. You have relationships that form on those first two tribes. Then you're split into another set of tribes. You're at least meeting a couple of people who are now going to the merge with you. So you've already got 3 different lines of relationships that might exist at this point,
Yeah.
which means at the merge, you have opportunity upon opportunity. The last thing that I think you need, just from not worrying about who it is, but from a like a gameplay perspective, the last thing you need is this 12th person coming in and staying in the game, because you have options of who to work for, or who to work with rather, going forward. And so I don't think that, like, if I were playing, I probably wouldn't want that person, because if I'm playing right, I've already got a bunch of options in the game. But I think the thing that you do is that you go around and say that you're targeting this person's going, and then you and your trusted core vote somebody else out, because we have seen in the past that people come back with idols. So you want to flush that idol if they come back with one, and then take them out in the second vote. But I think you need to push the narrative of they need to go home,
Okay.
because you don't want, it's like Tyson did say, you don't want him to get roots in the game, because he will set roots and he will stay. And that's very true. That is like a Tyson thing. When Tyson gets grounded into a comfortable position, he can start to run things.
That's fair. That's a totally fair point. I think, yeah, we're skipping ahead. I agree with you. I will say that before I get on another soapbox or another speech. So
So okay, so the challenge, we do get a few moments that were just very interesting. So first off, I want to ask a question, another did you miss it moment. Why are the girls all forced to wear like their buff as a booby holder and like swim panties, and the guys are all wearing like long sleeve shirts and pants? Like, was that a production decision?
I don't know, because yeah, we completely glossed over the fact that yeah, they get to the challenge and Jeff's like, Sophie, you are just shaking, and it's like she's not wearing anything.
Yes, no clothing.
Like, right? I'm like, oh, Jeremy's wearing like a firefighter t-shirt and long pants. I'm here in a bathing bottom and a buff. Of course I'm shaking.
Right.
And that was another I'm gonna go ahead and try and compose myself before I say something hurtful. But Adam being like, geez, it's like these people have never played Survivor before with his long sleeve shirt. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm done giving Adam as much time as I've been giving Adam. That being said, I was like, why don't you get out there in some thong underwear and like a tank top cut right under your nipples and tell me how it's perfectly fine how cold it is. Girl.
Um, so Sophie is just freezing to death. We see this moment, and it was brutal. Michelle had a huge fall from the pole.
We talk about did you miss it moments. I swear to God, I looked into the kitchen for what felt like 3 seconds, and I look back, and Adam is trying to help Michelle off the floor, and I'm just like, wait, what? So it absolutely was a did you miss it, because I completely missed it. And I'm like, I don't know how high she fell from. Everyone was talking about it like it was a big deal, and I'm like, I need to put a giant cardboard box between the living room and the kitchen. Damn the fact I have an island. Damn it. It was so bad. There it is. I missed it. I'm not proud, but there it is.
Even better than the fall, which was scary, honestly. I have finally had a moment this season where I cried.
What?
And I cried because I laughed so hard. Did you watch when Michelle fell and was recovering and clearly in pain and was trying to stand up? Adam slowly slinks down his pole and attempts, and I use the word very liberally, attempts to help Michelle walk back to the sander bench.
Arm over his shoulder? Oh my God.
By not even supporting her weight at all. Uncomfortably grabbing her arm and throwing it over his shoulder. And she's hobbling but not using him at all. And he's never done this in his life, you can tell. It was the most uncomfortable. It was the most Adam moment of the season.
Well, it's one of two things. Either A, Adam is just a virgin, or B, Michelle was just like, I do not want your help. Please give me my arm back.
Her
Leave
face,
me alone.
her face said, "Don't touch me."
I wouldn't be shocked.
Oh
It's
my god, you had like, if there was ever a "Did you miss it" moment, America, the world,
I
or
will,
planet
I
Earth.
will, I will say, I will say, having wanted to be very, very kind to Adam and failing week after week after week after week, I will say, at the very least, the attempt was very sweet, and that was really nice of him to at least try. As cringeworthy as it was nice that he tried. There, said something nice about Adam.
You finally found something.
It took me
All I know, if
7
I ever break my ankle, I am not calling Adam Klein. Um, Denise, Queen Denise, victorious mother.
next episode.
So happy she's not 12th place.
I'm so happy that she stayed and that she won immunity, because especially with all eyes on her, the problem with having all eyes on you and then winning immunity are the eyes are even more on you. And I'm so terrified for her, to be honest.
Well, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I think based on how the vote went down, I think Denise is not going to be the biggest public enemy anymore. And that is the beauty of winning the first merge challenge coming from a brutal pre-merge,
Yeah.
is that people are going to be hurt from that first vote if it's not 11-1.
Mhm.
And she has the beauty of it not being an 11-1 vote, and people are seriously betrayed. Michelle had been working with Jeremy from the beginning of the game, but we'll get into that, I think, later. But
I,
I
we were talking about who won the challenge. I think in my brain, I was just like, okay, pre-tribal, let's go.
no, we're there, but no, I think winning immunity was clearly a good thing for Denise, and I don't think, at least for the next episode, based on the little sneaky preview, I don't think it's going to be a bad thing. We get a showdown between Jeremy and Nick at the challenge. I want to just point out another "Did you miss it" moment from the preview that we had last week. The names that were going around at the pre-tribal chit chatter were Nick and Adam. Those names were specifically thrown out. There might have been other ones, but
No,
those
not this week's episode, but last week's episode.
last week's preview, yeah. And those were the names that were going around. So we know that Nick doesn't win immunity because Nick's name can't be thrown out there if he's got.
Oh, see, you're really observant, because I didn't catch that.
That was editing fail, which is fine. But Jeremy's making some fun like showdown faces at Nick. He's like, Nick's all giggly, and Jeremy's like, "Don't fuck with me. I'm winning this challenge."
You haven't seen this? I need you to join the group, if only for this one thread and the comments. There's literally like a new meme going around now. It's Jeremy doing and then Nick doing his. And it's someone basically posted the two pictures next to each other. It's like, this is the new meme challenge. Fill them in however you want. And some of them were just laugh out loud funny, because one of them was like, what was it? My girlfriend introducing me to her new parents. And then the other one was me and all my dead baby jokes. Or the other one that just absolutely made me wet myself was me looking at Nick's toilet paper in his shopping cart. Charmin. Like, some of them are so freakishly funny. But yes, I'm happy that you pointed that out.
My quote would be Nick saying, "I think Adam's playing a great game," and then just Jeremy's face with nothing else.
Okay, that was hilarious. You need to get in there and actually post that in there, because that's the Charmin one was my personal favorite, but that one might have topped it, because that's freaking hilarious. No, yeah, I honestly was kind of like, if Nick doesn't go, it's like he wasn't going to get voted out this episode anyway. And spoiler alert, he didn't. So, to the shock of nobody.
Right. So Jeremy and Denise are our winners, and we go right back to the camp. And right away, it kind of seems like it's Nick versus Adam is this sort of immediate target structure that occurs. And dear Survivor season 40, I know we haven't asked you for much, but if that can just be what happens, I'll be so nice. I promise. I won't say anything bad.
No, see, and this is how I know I'm a pessimist, because it splits like it's either Nick or it's Adam. I was like, oh my God, the skies have parted. God has looked on me with his physical eyes and said, Alex, here you are. And I was just like, this isn't going to happen. Neither one
We've
is going home. They're both safe.
we've seen it happen earlier in the season with Parvati and Adam, and then ooh, surprise, Ethan.
But no, and I was just like, it's never the people that they talk about. Let's be honest. And then they did the Adam's so out of the loop. Adam's so upset because he thinks people are lying to him. Adam's in like literally like holding himself in the shower, almost crying. And I'm like, I'm supposed to believe that Adam's going because after watching 39 seasons of the show, I don't know how it's edited. Okay, you're cute, CBS. So that's when I was like, Nick's not going anywhere. Adam's not going anywhere. It was interesting because there seemed to be a lot of infighting amongst fans on the subject of Sophie like making Wendell the target or Ben making the target. And I'd have to really rewatch the episode because the clip that they showed on the Survivor Facebook page was Ben saying, looks like it's Wendell or Nick. I'd rather it be Nick. And Sophie saying, I'd rather it be Wendell. And a lot of Ben fans seem to feel, I have to rewatch the episode in case I missed it. A lot of Ben fans are really pissed off that Sophie's getting all the credit about Wendell being her target and Wendell going home. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm missing the same thing that you're missing. And maybe I always believe in editing, right? I always believe in editing. I'm always just like, maybe, and it's possible Ben just said, hey, I'm going for Nick because I actually want to go for Wendell, but I don't want to be the one to say it because it looks like Nick's going home right now. So maybe he was trying to capitalize on that. It's rare that I'm ever going to give Ben anything resembling credit. That being said, from where I was sitting and with my eyes and ears that work, Sophie said, let's get rid of Wendell when Wendell was not even on the table or barely on the table and Wendell went home. So...
Well, that's absolutely what happened according to the edit. And what else do we have to go off of besides the edit? So let's do that. Logical Survivor fans, thanks very much. Sophie's the first one to say that she wants Wendell. I didn't really hear it come out of Ben's mouth at all, but yeah, revisionism is totally fine.
I literally had someone say, okay, Alex. Well, I did a screenshot literally of Ben saying it's Wendell or Nick. I prefer Nick. And then a screenshot of Sophie saying, I prefer Wendell. I put that on there, and the person that I posted this to literally was like, okay, Alex, you just hear what you want to hear. And I was like, I literally just provided the evidence supporting what I'm talking about, and I'm only listening to what I want to hear. Okay, you're fine.
You hear what you want to hear, like what you're actually being told. Like you should, yeah, you hear that. Sure, go.
That was one of those ones where I was just like, okay, I've only provided evidence, you provided your opinion, so all right.
Right. So Queen Sophie knows that the big guys are teaming up, which this girl is just, she's the anti-Adam. Adam observes things that aren't actually happening. Sophie observes things that are actually happening. It's wonderful. It's what we deserve as Survivor fans and people who want women to do well in this season. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you. Like if Adam had both perception that was accurate and a uterus, he would be Sophie. Since he has none of those things, or people skills, as it turns out. Dang it, I was gonna be nice to Adam this time. I'm gonna stop talking. Keep going.
Turns out all you need to be Sophie are to have perceptiveness and have a uterus. It's wonderful. So I thought it was very funny how Jeremy was like, I don't want to push this vote because I'm going to make myself such a target. And then he's pushing the shit out of this vote really, really hard. We just had some really gold moments leading up to the tribal council. Adam asking Ben, like, or in his confessional talking about how he's talking to Ben, and Ben's like, I just got back, I haven't talked to anybody. And I'm like, well, it's not you that's in danger. And he's giving his confessional. He's like, well, I'm the one who might be going home. Why are you upset? And it's like, because you're annoying the shit out of everybody in this cast.
Nobody wants to work with you. Ever.
People are coming up to Denise like, do you want to take out Adam? And she's like, yes! Please!
Everyone kept saying,
I
like,
thought you were close. I don't give a fuck!
I'm like, Denise and Adam are tight. And I'm like, I want to go back and be like, was that someone that was on Original Cell? Because I swear to God, that was a soundbite.
I think it had to have been.
It had to have been. Because I'm sitting here just like, I'm so sorry. When's the last time Denise and Adam were on the same tribe? That's like assuming anybody on Original Decall like is not gonna betray anyone on their tribe swap tribe. I don't know. I found it really funny. I was like, I don't understand why everyone just keeps pushing this whole thing about Denise and Adam. Denise absolutely voted against Adam's plan to get rid of Parvati.
Right.
I'm like, obviously they're not that tight. Calm down.
I don't even know if Denise really would have been target number one. There was a moment that I thought was interesting, and it sort of flew under the radar with the edit a little bit. But when Nick was kind of jumping around to all of the conversation groups, the girls were sort of all huddled, like doing hair and stuff in the shelter, while the guys are all like off, like, oh, we're in the big guys alliance, so we're going to go do this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, they haven't said it, and it's not probable. But can we get a girls' alliance? Can it be a thing? Because what really excited me this episode is we're at a merge of 12. We have Denise, Michelle, Kim, Sophie, and Sarah. So we have 5 girls and 7 guys.
Are there only 5 girls left?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And not a single girl's name comes up for tribal, including people like, let's ignore the fact that Sophie and Sarah are in really good social positions. I'll leave them with that. But Kim, her name didn't come up at all. And I think if you're thinking, who's a huge threat that's going to get numbers on their side and then wreck the game, Kim. And her name didn't come up at all. It was fantastic for me, let alone her not being in the Big Dogs Alliance, which I thought was, again, shocking. But to not bring up Kim's name at a merge was like, wow, this is some next level stuff, and it's only guys being targeted. I'm 1,000,000% here for it.
Well, I honestly think that is in a lot of ways, I wouldn't say like old school Survivor, but like old borderline on new. So probably around like season 15 to maybe 25. There was the mindset of we need to get rid of the girls. Like early Survivor, it was usually the older woman who was the first one voted out in a lot of seasons. And I think there's a bit of obviously there's an evolution that's happened amongst the seasons. But yeah, this season it was very much like girl gone, Ethan, girl gone, and girl gone. And I'm like, but why? What is going on? So yeah, it's fascinating. I didn't realize that of the 12 before this week's boot, I didn't realize I knew it was close. Yeah, no, 5 to 7, that makes sense.
Yeah, which is not a huge disparity, but...
What?
It's not a huge disparity, but, it's enough. And, of course, I fully expect next week it's going to be one of those, well, there's only 6 guys and there's 5 girls. We can't have an all-girls alliance. We'll take one of them out. Because God forbid there ever be even-gendered numbers in the game.
Here's the thing that drives me crazy. I almost feel like if I ever go on Survivor or Big Brother, I'm not going to be able to be a part of an all-girls alliance, but I'm going to be like, could the 4 of you just vote together and be cool or tight? Or even if I'm like, I'll be the honorary 5th member of the girls alliance and y'all can take me out at 5. Obviously I wouldn't let it happen if I could, but I'm just like, could y'all stick together? Because every single time, whether it's Survivor or Big Brother, someone will propose an all-girls alliance and there's always one girl. There can never be 4 girls that say, yes, let's do this alliance. Let's take out these boys, girl power, screw everyone else. There can never be one, ever. Always one female who just goes, no. And I always feel like it could be 7 guys that say, so guys alliance, and all 7 of them will go, okay.
Right. I'm totally with you. If I got cast on a reality show, I would be like, please, like, I want to be in the girls alliance. Like, I'm not going to blow it up. I'm not going to do anything. I just want to be in the girls alliance. Please, like, let's make a girls alliance.
Oh, or like the girl with the penis, like whatever. Let them be Alliance.
I like to root for people that aren't me, like that don't represent my demographic. Like, so I just want those people to be successful on our show because 90% of the time they're not. Like 90% of the time we get a male winner who is white.
I was gonna say
Yay.
Caucasian male heterosexual winner, and I gotta be honest, over it. Anyway,
Um,
so yeah, amazing point out that Kim did not seem to get targeted. I'm willing to bet cash. I'd love to talk to a cameraman from the show more than anyone else in this life, just because I'd like to think that like of the 12, I'd like to think at different points, at least 10 names get thrown out. At least.
oh, I'm sure.
If at any point I'm willing to bet cash, someone goes, well, we've all talked about these 5 people. No one's talking about this person. And to me, that makes them dangerous. We should get rid of them. Obviously, they can't show everyone because it's only a 43-minute episode, but still, I'm like, I think everyone at some point gets targeted.
Oh, it definitely has to happen. I mean, you hear glimpses of it at Tribal where people are like, no, every name came up. And I think it's just very rare that it would be like, oh no, only 2 names came up. But when you come into the merge like that, I mean, obviously everyone's going to have a certain person that they're trying to protect. And it's interesting to see like whose narrative really comes through. Like who benefits the most from the names of Adam, Nick, and Wendell coming up. And I think that's one, it is the big guys alliance, even though Jeremy, as we see at the end of Tribal, does not end up getting his way this episode. Someone like Wendell going is still good for Jeremy's game because he's not perceived as the big threat group.
Correct.
And to be fair, because I don't want to take anything away from any of the players, but I think if you're looking at who's in that top dog alliance and you're not counting Kim, because apparently Kim doesn't count as a human being or a player at this point, the person that I think is most threatening as a player that doesn't have immunity, so not Denise, would be Wendell. And if you're looking at who's going to skate to the end, well, I don't think Wendell is someone that's going to skate to the end. So no, that's not a direct threat. But if you're looking at who might be able to strategically outmaneuver me, then yes, out of Michelle, Nick, Adam, Wendell, I think there's Tyson. Well, no, Tyson's in this group. And then Sarah, who I don't know why they're discounting, but they're not. They're not even thinking about her, or Sophie. So they're thinking Wendell would be the next biggest threat. And if you're not looking at any of the girls, which apparently they weren't, then I would agree that out of, Nick, Adam, Wendell makes the most sense to go home because he's probably going to outplay at least a few people in the game.
See, and what you just explained, because I wholeheartedly agree with you, but that's to me why I said I legitimately think Ben, Adam, Nick, and Michelle all make Final 7, if not Final 8.
I'm
Because
not gonna jump into that theory quite yet, just because if they do, that just means everyone that I'm rooting for is slated to go home in the next 4 episodes in a row, and I don't want to see it.
see, but here's the trick for me is that I just feel like it's what you do. In a normal season, you vote out the people that are the biggest threats. And a lot of people are really surprised. They're like, oh, I haven't seen Adam in this light before, where he's kind of like whining, he's kind of doing these things, or even Nick, where it's like, Nick got brought up in the Tyson vote out, the original Tyson vote out, because it's like, and everyone's like, oh, he doesn't contribute around camp, he doesn't really do much, all these things. And I'm like, and people are like, oh, I was such a Nick fan, and now I don't know, and da da da. I'm just like, what exactly did Nick do in a season that somehow charmed you, other than having nice teeth, smiling a bunch, and being white? And the answer for most people is nothing. And I'm like, I don't really have anything for that, other than I'm like, nothing surprises me that Nick has made it this far, that Adam has made it this far, that Michelle has made it this far, because they don't do much.
Yeah.
And people have been like shocked and saying, "Oh, Michelle's going to win this game. She's playing such a powerful game." I'm like, "What game are you seeing other than complaining about Wendell and voting with him anyway?" That's all I'm saying with the eyes that I have that work.
I completely thought at Tribal that Michelle voted out Wendell. I did not think that Jeremy voted Wendell out of the game.
Oh, weird. Yeah,
So
no,
I was
3 votes for Adam. I immediately assumed it was Nick, Michelle, and Wendell that voted for Adam.
yeah, I was like, because in my head I wanted to give her the credit of being like, haha, I was using you, bye. I'm working with the girls, bye. and she did not. And so for the second time this season, let's keep this in mind, Michelle was blindsided by a vote. Um, so phenomenal game that she's playing. I think not personally yet. Hopefully something comes down the line if she does end up making it towards the end that she has something to stick in her resume. But I did have a moment where I laughed out loud again at Adam again.
Cry this time?
No, I didn't cry this time. Only he's only worth one batch of tears. This episode. Um, his voting confessional, I was just like, please, editors, please do it to us. Adam goes to vote and says, he writes down Wendell's name and shows it, and he goes, I know that it's either you or me going home tonight. But do you know that? And I was like, please tell me it's Nick. And Adam is not voting correctly. And Nick goes home because the editors have been having so many fun moments of Adam being a spaz and completely wrong. And I just wanted 2 or 3 moments of that this episode, and I didn't get quite that many because it was Wendell that went home.
Yeah.
I already know how you feel about Wendell going home, but let's talk about it because I know you're not thrilled on it.
I would have liked to see Wendell continue to play the game more than Nick playing the game. To me, I feel like we haven't seen Nick really make a lot of moves. You haven't seen a lot of camera time with Nick. None of that surprises me because to me, Nick was very little of an entity of his original season. And he's proving my point by not being much of an entity in this season. So if anything, even if it's a player that I don't care for, I would much rather big players with a lot of strategy and with a lot of social finesse and the ability to make moves in the game. Those are the people I'd like to stay longer, even if they target. The only reason why I'd be happy to see Wendell go is if he was targeting Denise. It seems as though he was targeting Sophie, so I'm not devastated that he left. But that's why I'm more so upset about that. I know we've disagreed about the Michelle Wendell situation, and to me, I'm just like, if anything, Michelle enables Wendell to do all the things that Michelle complains about, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, I would have liked to see Wendell stay in longer purely because I think Wendell would have made the game more interesting. Nick is not an interesting player. He wasn't for me in his original season. He's definitely not for me now. So I would have much rather seen Nick go than Wendell go. I would have much rather see Adam go than Wendell go. But again, people are going to try and get rid of the big players more so than the players that aren't really known for doing amazing moves. And if anything, kind of to momentarily bring it back to Tony, at least he's saying it. At least he's bringing it up. So yeah, that's my thing. I'm not devastated to see Wendell go. He wasn't one of my favorites going into the season. He was up there for sure, but he wasn't like in my top 5 under any circumstance or circumstances. And it's a bummer that he left just because I think had he stayed in, he would have made it more entertaining for us viewers. And I think a lot of the people that are going to stay, I keep saying it, Ben, Michelle, Adam, and Nick are all going to the final 8. And it sucks. I want to be wrong so bad, I would pay money to be wrong so bad. But I'm like, at the very least, 3 of them are in the top 8. I personally believe all 4 of them are going to be in the top
8. There was something else I wanted to mention. I think my thoughts on Wendell going are that I'm not super happy about it, but I'm not upset about it. I mean, there are players I was cheering for more that I really wanted to do well. So thank God for the first time in how many weeks it wasn't one of them, because it just kept happening over and over again. My heart couldn't take anymore. I think Rob was the last person that was voted out that I was not like, ugh, like please stop. So not thrilled that it's Wendell, but I'm not upset. But I really feel like the editing did him dirty. And I had mentioned this before when I talked about how the edit is uncomfortable because we get shown this narrative that we need to be supporting this person or rooting for this person for playing a great game or being a good person or some kind of redeemable quality because they have to go on to win that season. And then coming into all winner season, it's contrary to the edit that we've been shown of them before. And that makes it a little uncomfortable. And I felt like they really went out of their way to try and make Wendell look like a douchebag. And then he was the merge boot. And I think half the confessionals he got in this season were in the last 2 episodes, and before that, we really didn't see much of anything from him. So it was kind of just like I felt like the editors weren't very happy with Wendell, or they were like, we gotta pick someone, so this is gonna be our someone.
I feel like Wendell must have said some really choice, opinionated things about Jeff Probst on camera with the microphone on. And I honestly think that probably has more to do with it. And here's the trick. I will always applaud Survivor because I've watched every season. I wholeheartedly feel that they obviously are very deliberate with what they show about every player. And it's like, I get that usually, this goes back to a point that I made in a previous episode. Traditionally, they don't show the winner of any season. The only one that comes to mind is Tony. They don't show too many winners in a particularly negative light as the season progresses. They really don't. There are qualities and there are traits that people might dislike in winners or like in winners more than others. But they usually keep it pretty neutral to positive for whoever winds up getting the check. So whether it's because they're really funny or they're really personable or they make great moves, so there are definitely winners where I'm like, they smile a bunch, and that's about the one thing I can think of that's great about them. Quick question though, between Nick, Adam, and Wendell, I know that neither of us were devastated that Wendell went, but if you could have handpicked who went home,
Adam, as of 7 episodes ago, Adam. Can it be Adam? Can I pick Adam?
You and I have both been part of the Get Adam Out committee for.
Can I pick Adam 3 times?
Well, between Adam and Nick, who would you have gone for if you had to go for either of those two, and why?
Between Adam and Nick, or Wendell and Nick?
All right, Wendell and Nick. Sorry.
Okay. Nick. No, I would have rather seen Wendell stay. And that's why I do think it was a good move from whoever, whether it be Ben or Sophie. No, I think whoever targeted Wendell, if it was that Big Dogs Alliance, if it was Sophie, whoever, I think targeting Wendell, if they're not working with him, is a really good move on their part, more than Nick. I mean, I don't want to toot Nick's horn too much because I'm not totally in the Nick camp of, oh, I think he's a great winner or great player or anything like that. But Nick does seem to excel when the numbers are not in his favor. So that's a part that is a bit nerve-wracking to me as a Survivor player, is that Nick is already in the minority. He knows how to navigate the minority. Wendell has never had to do that.
That's fair.
So that is concerning.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's already happened twice this season, which if he makes it to the end, that's all I'm going to say is how many times have Adam and Nick been in the crosshairs of who's going home? Twice each. But also it's going to be like, it was Nick or Tyson, who in a strategic game of who can mastermind and manipulate people is going to vote out Nick over Tyson, who in a game of who can mastermind or manipulate people is going to get rid of Nick over Wendell. And I'm just like, this is why these people that just don't do much and basically skated by in their seasons for not doing much are doing well in Heroes versus Villains placement-wise because, or Heroes versus Villains, Winners at War placement-wise because they're doing the exact same thing they did in their season. Right. They got rewarded for it the first time, and I swear to God, if they get rewarded the second time, I'm going to lose my ever-loving mind.
If I'm, so like, obviously on a personal level, I'd rather see Wendell stay than Nick. But if I'm playing in this season, I keep Wendell. I see it very much how Jeremy sees it. I think you want to, the first person that people are going to jump on is, oh, I really want to get this person out. To me, that's a better ally because you're that person's way out. If everyone's like, oh, no, we'll keep Nick. Nick is being annoying, but we'll keep Nick because Nick's not going to do anything. I don't want that person in there because that person's taking my spot in the finals.
Yes. I'm like, even if you're playing, even if somehow remarkably, as smart as you are, you're in the game and you're playing for third place, you don't want someone else that can take that third place spot. And that is exactly what Nick is doing at this time. He could turn on the back burners and start, implementing his game and things like that. No, if I'm sitting there and I'm like, most of these people don't like me, and if I make it to the end, they might vote for me just because I got to the end and they hated me the entire time, and I might get a vote or two, or I might win. Even then, if you think, if I'm going to potentially get third place, who do I not want to be in that third place spot instead of me? Because I can get fourth, fifth, or sixth place, because someone thinks Alex is going to sit there and get third place. That wouldn't happen, because if I made it anywhere near the end, I'm about to win, because people would be like, Alex cussed people out to their faces. Alex absolutely was bluntly honest all the time. He didn't kiss ass. He told people when they sucked. He laughed when they sucked.
Come on, Cass McQuillan.
What?
I said, come on, Cass McQuillan.
Whatever, man. I was so mad she didn't make it to the final three. I'm mad her season didn't have a final three.
I know. Man,
because she deserved it. No, I wholeheartedly am that person who's just like, get rid of Nick.
I think it's an interesting strategy that we don't see come up in Survivor often. It's actually, in my opinion, it's very rare. I think we actually saw it last season with Karishma, where I think people took her out because she was a GOAT. Like, people were like, oh, she's going to get to the end and win. Or not win, sorry. She's going to get to the end and take up a spot that I want in that final three. So she needs to go now.
Do you legitimately think that? Because part of me just wonders, did they vote her out for that exact reason you just said, or did they vote her out because they just didn't want to live with Karishma anymore?
I don't know. I like Karishma as a viewer of Survivor, but I don't know what she's like on an island. So I think that, to me, that was what I interpreted the reasoning as. And if I'm wrong, then it is a strategy that we've at least seen sparsely throughout Survivor history of, do you take out the GOAT because the GOAT is taking up possibly your spot in the finals? And I'm hoping that we see that strategy throughout this season with who is still left in.
I would personally give not a testicle, maybe an ovary. I can spare one of those. I would offer an ovary just to make sure that the people that I'm convinced are going to at least the final 8 don't make it to the final 8. But
I would offer up all of your ovaries for that.
I'm sorry that you're taking such creative license with my anatomy. My fictional anatomy.
Your body, my choice. That's how this works.
I was like, oh my God, you're officially the Republican Party.
Woof.
It's because you're white, so it's great.
Oh my God.
Tell me that's not funny, because it is.
This took a turn. So there was one other thing that I wanted to talk about. We had a moment, I think right after, maybe right when Edge of Extinction walked in, and someone remarked, oh my God, it's all the old school players. And someone was like, was that intentional?
And Adam was like, it really wasn't.
My asshole. That's how I feel about it. It was 1,000,000% intentional.
I believe it was. And I honestly think, I feel like Adam would be the one, if for whatever reason they did like another like Cook Island situation where they broke it up by race and just magically the first 5 people voted out were all minorities. Adam would be the one to say, it was completely unintentional.
I don't notice color.
I don't notice color. It's just, when someone just said, and I know some people would be like, hey, so I don't want to vote out 5 consecutive people of color. Maybe we could throw in a Caucasian person just for the heck of it. Maybe, possibly, let's do that. Adam would be the one to be like, no, people won't view it that way. Never. And that's not even to say that Adam's racist. I'm not making that point. I'm not making that statement. I'm just saying when he was like, it really wasn't intentional. That's how it felt to me.
It was just obliviousness. Like, I know it wasn't intentional. Really?
I felt like it was, at the very least, it almost came across as, wow, I'm surprised. I didn't even realize that happened, which is not at all what he said. And I will owe up to that. That's just how it felt when he said it.
Right. I mean, I could maybe give some leeway on that Green Yara tribe, like 1,000,000%. Rob sealed his own fate there. Like, that was poor gameplay and dictatorship attempts, and that's fair. But I kind of just feel like on Old DeCall, on New Cele, for sure, it was like, no, those old school players are going home.
Right? It's like, oh, old school Asian. Who went before that? Oh, it was old school.
Barb.
Yeah, it wasn't a race thing there. But I just find it really, really fascinating. And to support Adam, I think the majority of the old school players that they brought back were in that legendary category. It's like you bring back Sandra, Sandra's going to be targeted, period. You bring back Rob, Rob is going to be targeted, period. You bring back Parvati, Parvati is going to be targeted. You bring back Yule, Yule's going to be targeted. I almost said parveted. Wow.
Parveted.
There you go. Yule's going to be targeted 120,000%. So it's almost just like there is an element of we take out the people that we think are threats. And I honestly think some people, like, they should have been a tribe of old school versus new school. I think that was just a construct that kind of became obvious after the cast had been assembled on the island. And I think they might have gone, oh, oops. Everyone keeps talking about old school and new school. I don't necessarily know that they walked into that cast thinking that was going to be a thing. But yeah, this is why I'm like, I would have loved to see Brian Heidick back. I would have loved to see Jenna Maraska back. I would have loved to see a number of winners come back who haven't played a million times and who don't have the reputations that a lot of the new school winners have that have only played once.
Right.
I think that would have been really beneficial, not only for the overall story of the season, but for the overall enjoyment for the viewers. It's like, because at any point in time, Rob's going to get targeted. Rob, Parvati, Sandra, and Yule are all going to get targeted relatively early. And guess what happened? That. So I think it definitely would have been a better play to have maybe one or two of those four, preferably the ones that haven't played 7 times, and then get some of the other old school winners that have not been around the block as many times as everybody else. But that's me.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, with the exception of Sandra being on Game Changers, we haven't seen any of these other old school winners back since season 20. I'm not counting Tyson as old school because he won in the New Age, so.
He did. And it's interesting because it's like, oh, I'm old school. I'm like, you're old school like when you played the first of your 4 times.
Right.
12 years ago, hun. Like, you're not old school. You've played with hidden immunity idols. You've played with your partner. Like, you know how the new school is run. You've played it. You're not old school. So, yeah. But
fortunate, like,
as his first time was in Token Chains, and I don't buy that.
It's just unfortunate because we wait like 20 plus seasons to see some of these people play, and they're all like dominoed out of the game. It's not bad play by the new school players, and it's just frustrating to be like, oh, it wasn't a thing. I don't believe it.
I think this is probably the first episode in a hot minute where you and I have agreed on like 98% of things, and I'm thoroughly here for it. And I appreciate
time. That whole Wendell Michelle thing really threw us out there.
It really did. And it's funny only because I definitely appreciated the living heck out of the fact that we did have some discourse, but also it's just like, I miss agreeing all the time with my buddy. And I hope we can get back to that. All it took was the Michelle Wendell split up, and now we're back to where we need, offering up my ovaries to get the people that aren't playing the game much out of the game.
Your sacrifice is appreciated.
Well, I know. I also know that your ovaries aren't going to fetch much on the open market, so I know they have to be mine.
Yeah. Did you have a drop your buff moment this episode?
Oh God, I'm absolutely confident that I did. I don't know if it's a drop your buff moment. I think just the gag of I think it's probably a split. I think it's like the gag / almost borderline indignance between Tyson coming back over like the 5 to 6 other people I'd rather see him come back in, and Denise being dubbed the Queen Slayer. I'm just like, oh my gosh, get me that Jaime Lannister edit. She slayed the queen. She slayed the queen. I'm all about it. Someone chop off her hand and become the most almost redeemable character in Game of Thrones before he wasn't. Like, yeah, that was it. It's probably between those two.
Yeah. I am just gonna go with, I feel like that Michelle and Adam moment at the challenge was so fucking funny with him trying to carry her. That's just gonna get my drop your buff because I don't think I've seen something that uncomfortable in so long. I'm gonna go back after this and find it and timestamp it to you because
Nice.
it was so good. any predictions coming up, or did you see anything in the preview? I felt like the preview was very like vague, very vague this episode.
I know I watched the preview. I don't like doing, I think the next person to go is a man or a woman because I've already made that kind of prediction. I personally think the next elimination I'm gonna go is either going to be, since I don't want to do gender, I think the next to go is either going to be Tony, Jeremy, Sophie, or Denise. Obviously, Sophie and Denise are in my top 4 since before the season even started. I'd love it to be neither of them, but I think one of those 4 is going to go. I'd love to be wrong because I think any one of the 4 of them could win a second time and I would not be upset. And that's saying a lot because I did not like Tony in his season.
Right.
And Jeremy to me is kind of just there, but he's playing a fine game for being like a big name player who did really well in an all-star season.
Yeah, I feel like Tony's going to be around for a little while. I don't want to make a boot prediction because I just don't have any idea. Anytime I go by anything that I'm seeing, I'm wrong. And so like if I was going on the edit,
it's your fault that Yule went because you made predictions about Yule.
It really is, and I'm not doing it to Sophie. I'm not. So I feel like we saw a preview of like Sarah and Nick being like Nick threw out Sarah's name or was pissed about Sarah, and Sarah's like, "You're not throwing out my name, you're going a lot." So I feel like neither of them are going home because based on this past episode, that's what happened. We heard a preview of why not Nick, why not Adam, and it wasn't either of them. And going into tribal, it wasn't either of them, and it was supposed to be. So I don't want to make a prediction on that. I am going to say that my prediction is that the people on Edge can sell the idols they bought to people still in the game. So I predict that we will see a player, and I'm going to throw out possibly Jeremy, receive an idol from the Edge of Extinction.
Okay, do you want me to tell you something that I read in an interview with Jeff Probst?
Sure. Is this going to ruin my theory?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
According to Jeff Probst, the coins that were apparently the coins that Natalie and Boston Rob played, not only are the idols they would have received had they entered the game again, not only are those null and void, the fire tokens that they used to purchase those are also null and void.
Well, I feel like why don't they get the idols that they bought?
I agree. But also, I would be the person that if Rob or Natalie gave their idol to someone I didn't like and they used it to take out someone I did like, all I would do is complain about it. So I get that decision. I don't get that decision. I think if I were asked right now to decide whether I agree with that or disagree with that, I kind of agree with it just because it's like, yeah, dude, you can, since they had the opportunity to buy multiple advantages in the challenge and they chose not to, part of me thinks that's fair.
Well, I'm not going to say it's not fair, but I feel like they should still get to hold on to their idol on the Edge. Like, it's not like they shouldn't have an idol sitting up their butt on Edge of Extinction. Like, if they get back into the game at top 6, I bought this.
Yeah, I can side with that. That's fine. Yeah.
So. Oh, well, okay, forget my prediction then. I'm going to predict that Jeff Probst is going to say the word wow at least 3 times.
Wow!
Wow. You never see anything like this in Survivor. Wow, 40 seasons I've been hosting this game, and this is the first time I've blah, 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 blah.
Now, so I think that is very likely to happen as well, but we're going with wow.
Live tribal. Wow.
How many times are we expecting that he'll say that?
At least 3.
At least 3, okay. So yeah, so I've got the 4 that I'm picking from as far as who I think is gonna go home in the next episode, and you have wow.
Wow.
I'd love for both of us to be wrong.
Well, I almost predicted that there might be a reward challenge, and I know I would be wrong if I predicted that, so. Wow.
Wow, a reward challenge. I actually think we're long overdue for a reward challenge.
Yeah, like 7 seasons overdue for a reward challenge.
So yeah, I feel like they've been doing reward challenges. It's either going to be like the double elimination episode next, or I'd like to think they do a reward challenge just because they don't have to keep jumping back and forth between two tribes.
Hopefully.
And there's only 11 players, and the two original tribes were 10 players. So I think I wouldn't be shocked if they went back to reward challenges now that it's an individual game, but who knows?
Yeah.
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 Oh, real quick. Do you remember the last time we saw this? Because I thought about it, and I was like, they're all at the merge feast, and I'm like, wouldn't this be the greatest season to bring back I pulled a cheese puff out of the cheese puff bowl, and I saw a little scroll, so I reached back in and grabbed a handful of cheese puffs and the scroll, and then put it in my adult diaper, known as underwear. And I'm like, when they were sitting down at the feast, I was convinced, even though I feel like we haven't seen that in a long time. I was convinced that was going to happen.
I was just hoping as Denise was chugging whatever kind of liquor or wine that was, that a scroll was just going to pop down her throat, and she was going to be like, oh,
He's going to be like, I got this, I'm a sex therapist. And scroll.
Because that's what sex therapists do.
It's not at all, but it was really funny, and you're laughing about it, and that was my goal, and I succeeded. Thank you.
Oh, man.
This accurate about sex therapists over here.
That's totally in her job description to be able to do that. So,
I thought so.
Moments we could have had in an alternate universe.
There it is.
Speaking of alternate universes, I do at some point this coming week want to do a special episode with you about our lists that we've made for our one-time only previous players, second chances seasons. It'll be a fun little countdown list, and for anybody that does tune in, we'll bring it to you guys on a video. It'll be super fun.
Yes. I asked you just because I was like, we agree on so many players. I was just curious because it had come up in a group thread on Facebook, and I'm all for doing that video.
Yeah. What I want you to do is I want you to narrow down. We'll have two casts of 24 people, and then hang on to your other cast. Either do like another like a second tier cast, or do like an honorable mentions, because I have like 40-ish names or something like that.
When I was first making the cast, there were people that I'll say that for when we actually do the video. Did you say 2 24-person casts or 2 20-person casts?
No, a 24-person cast, and then you can either have an honorable mentions list or do a second cast of 24.
That's hard because I've got I narrowed it down to like 44 players because I thought we were doing 2 casts of 20. So I narrowed it down to 44, and even just finding the 4 to cut has been like Sophie's choice for me. And then on top of that, I've been the person going, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, I thought two of 20. So narrowing it down to 24, I'm just like, it's not going to happen. Like even making the initial list of the players I would like to see come back who have only played once and have never won, or that didn't win in their original season, I was like, there are people that I'd love to see back that I think just based on age, they might not come back. Or that I thought CBS would never bring them back. Like, I want to see Gretchen from season 1 back.
Girl, she's on my list. I'm a spoiler alert right now. Gretchen Cordy is one of my favorite players of all time. I don't care how old she is. She's going to play again on my list.
She is one of my favorites. And she was the very first victim of what at the time we did not even know existed, the word alliance. And I want Gretchen back so bad. But I did the math. I was like, season 1 happened in 2000. When she was 38. Season 41, whenever this would potentially happen, is going to be in 20 years later, so she's going to be 58. I don't care, because I think women of any age can accomplish whatever the hell they set their minds to. I want to see Gretchen back, but I almost did not, but almost cut her purely because of her age. And I was ashamed and affronted that I almost cut her for that reason.
I'm pretty sure I have a player that is almost in their 70s if they're not in their 70s on my list. So I am not afraid of doing this. And also, lest we forget that Rudy, rest his soul, in season 1 was in his 70s. So it is possible.
So, well, now I feel terrible because basically I had like the list that I created, of the original like groupings, which I want to say was like 60, 70 players. And as I was making the list, I did have like an honorable mention, like they're not going to be in either cast, but I definitely would not be mad to see them back. And usually I just figured I'm like, either they would want to come back because they'd be like, it's been 19 years, I don't care anymore. Or I feel like CBS would never bring them back. Because it's like, well, if they're a woman, they have to be in a bikini because that's CBS. And then, just kidding, since Ryan and I both want to be on Survivor someday, we love and appreciate all decisions made by CBS at all times. And that's it. So we'll definitely do this video. I feel like we're starting the video before we intend to start the video. The video we're currently in is probably 3 hours long already. So no, it's funny because Jeff Probst keeps calling this like the best season of Survivor. I don't necessarily agree.
Haven't seen it yet, but we have 11 people still, so there's time.
Like, yeah, there's still time. I'm not saying it's a bad season by any stretch. I'm just saying the excitement that I had in the first episode, I have not necessarily maintained as it's progressed. There's still time and there's still hope that it will ascend back to that level. We just have to kind of wait and see. So
it's no Redemption Island, so it's okay.
The opinions I have. Anyway, I love it, love it, love it. Ryan, thank you again so much for being such an amazing co-host.
And thank you for having me as always.
I was going to say greatest co-host on the planet. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you agree with things that we've had to say, disagree with things that we've had to say, if there's something that we absolutely should have addressed that we did not address, please by all means, let us know. We'll be more than happy to bring up things that we overlooked. Obviously, these are opinions about a television show. Any negative things you have to say about any player, especially Adam, are merely from a gameplay standpoint and not necessarily because we dislike him. I'm sure he's an absolutely lovely person. Any negative thing that we have to say is meant mostly in jest, mildly in how we feel. So,
thank you to anybody for tuning in, and we will see you guys on the next episode.
Next time, roar sweater. Okay.